Thank you very much for being here. My name is Riccardo Tempesta and I'm CTO at MageSpecialist. And today I'd like to share with you a couple of ideas on how to optimize our job and possibly survive to our job. So, before we go, I'd like you to focus on what we do every day. I mean, I know you know exactly what is your job, but have you ever tried to explain to someone what is exactly your job? I want to see some hand if you tried once. Yeah, did it work? No, okay. You know, one time Einstein said that you do not know something unless you're able to explain to your grandmother. And I tried once. But I'm not sure she understood, because at the end she asked me to fix her television, so I'm not sure it worked. But anyway, talking with her, I understood one simple thing about our job. It's a very simple division on what we do every day. We just create features, and we just debug features. And debugging can be divided into your code, someone else's code. That's it. Okay, we spend a lot of time on Facebook, but this is another story. But this is the main activities. These are the main activities we do every single day. And we all know, and I want you to be honest, that debugging is probably the most time-consuming part of our job. And in my opinion, cannot be divided between, there cannot be a real division between developing and debugging, because in my opinion, debugging is a part of developing. When we create a new code, we are writing code. When we debug, we are understanding this code. This is why I focus on this part, on debugging. Especially because if you go, for example, with TDD, test-driven development, debugging and creating code, they are almost the same. But before we go and we see the tools I suggest you to use while debugging, I want to do just a brief introduction on the tools I suggest you to use while creating a new project or a new feature. Well, you will find something quite obvious, but I want to remark this, because you need to have, yeah, of course, a good developing environment, but they are not the same, they are not all the same. So what I suggest you to use is PHP Storm, for example. And if you ask me why, it's probably because you never used it. We have seen in the previous speech, for example, all the tools we can have on board directly with PHP Storm. And it's also integrated with a lot of stuff we'll see later. And you will need a virtualization environment, because I hope you're not running your Magento developing environment with XAMPP or LAMP or whatever amp. Do you? I don't trust you. And yeah, here you have my first tip. Vagrant or Docker? First of all, raise your hand if you know Vagrant or Docker. Almost everyone knows. Okay, so why there is a question mark near Docker? They are both virtualization systems, but I think that a lot of people are using Docker in the wrong way. I mean, Vagrant is let's say it's a monolithic virtual machine. I mean, it's all inside. You have a web server, you have Nginx, you have PHP, you have MySQL, all in one single machine. Docker is not like this. In Docker, you have containers, and each container should take care only of one single service. So for example, we have a container for MySQL, a container for PHP, and so on. If you do not follow this way, and I've seen a lot of people not following this way, you're using Docker in the wrong way. So I strongly suggest you to use Vagrant in that case, even because it's much more simple to handle. And if you ask to yourself, which is better for me, then the answer is probably Vagrant. And you should use Docker only if your production environment is in Docker, for example. This is my opinion. And well, yeah, of course, Git, I think no one will argue if we say is the best versioning system, because we use versioning system, right? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, people not raising their hand. Do you use Magento.1, Magento.2, Magento.yesterday? Please don't. Git is the best solution. You should use another set of tools. We have seen some of them in the previous speech. Magento is a plugin for PHP Storm. It's a very powerful plugin, we'll see later. And Mage2Gen. Mage2Gen is a very powerful software that allows you to create code on the fly. It writes code for you. And so why you should use MageDay, for example, to create your basic module setup, and then you can continue developing on that module using Magento. But you need these tools because you know that Magento requires a bit of boilerplate code. Do you know what boilerplate code is? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, for people not raising their hands, it's like, to make an example in the real life, it's like bureaucracy. It's something you don't care, you don't like, it's boring. But you have to accomplish, because if you don't, your project will not work. Boilerplate code is almost like this. It's the bureaucracy of the code. So why you have to waste your time in writing boilerplate code if you have an extension doing this for you? But it is not only a matter of time. One single typo inside a boilerplate file can really screw up your project. So for example, if you, in your bi.xml file, you just forget something, one single letter, everything stops working. So it's very important. And yeah, you probably need a social life, but I'm not sure about this. This is just an example. Do you remember, first of all, do you know what a data model is? Raise your hand if you do. A few people. A data model is, let's say in a simple way, is a code representation of a database entity. So for example, if we have we want to create a database of employees in a company, the employee can be represented by a data model. In Magento 1, it was quite simple. Well, we have to write down at least 4 or 5 files. But in Magento 2, it's even more complex. Because if we want to follow all the Magento 2 guidelines, especially the ones from the service contracts, so we have to create repositories, data interface, and so on, we have to write a big amount of code. And we can have tools doing this for you. And a single error here is very hard to debug. This is why I strongly suggest you to use this kind of tools, code generators. So I told you before, I suggest you to use MageDay to set up your project. You have even an online interface if you don't want to deal with the command line. And I suggest you to use Magento to maintain your extension or to extend your extension. Because just remember, I say this always, your client does not always understand how complex this job is. So for example, it's very hard to explain to a client that, for example, adding one field to the customer address is very complex. Probably the worst example, okay? But, so you have to make this as simple as possible, because they will not pay. Because in my opinion, they have seen too many sci-fi movies, you know, in which we have one button, make it faster. This is just a screenshot of MageDay. As I told you before, it is there is even an online version. You just fill up the forms and you can download the module. This is very powerful. Okay, let's go back to the real core of my speech. Debugging. We'll have even to live demonstration that I converted into videos because so I can avoid that something mess up. So I told you before, debugging can be divided into debugging your code or debugging someone else's code. This is a very simple division, but very important because, for example, in the first scenario, when you're debugging your code, you have some constant. For example, you do not know where the broken piece of code is, but you have an idea sometimes because you do not write test units. Do you? You don't. In fact, no, I don't. This is why you have no idea where the broken piece of code is. So this is what I said before. It's very hard to let the client understand that debugging is part of developing. So when you say to your customer that there is a bug you need to fix, he just thinks it is your fault. But we know it is not exactly like this. You probably do not have any of the project budget left. This is a constant. And yes, Stack Exchange is offline. This always happens. And when debugging someone else's feature, the problem is that you have no clue on how about the project has been engineered. So you do not know where the, yeah, you're smiling, where the broken piece of code is, and you hope that that programmer didn't touch the code, because you don't touch the code, right? Raise your hand if you did at least once. Anyway, just one suggestion for me. If you do, never say to Ben Marks. Never. I have seen him killing people for this. Yeah, he has spies everywhere. And probably you even have some kind of issue trying to speak with the programmer who created this feature, because probably it's from another company. You have no contacts. You do not know his email, and probably he does not speak your language. And yeah, Stack Exchange is still offline. So we have these two kind of problems, and we'll see how to, yeah, and of course you hope it is not a mess of spaghetti coding. Why debugging features in Magento 2 is so hard? Because the problem in Magento 2, let's be honest guys, is to find something, right? Because in Magento 1 we have few ways to rewrite the standard Magento behavior, few between quotes, because in Magento 1 we just had rewrites, rules hijacking, and so on. But in Magento 2 we also have, for example, plugins, and we can stack plugins. So finding the breaking piece of code is very hard, especially if you're in a team. So finding the piece of code you need can be often challenging and time-consuming. This is the main problem of debugging in Magento 2. Did you understand what is the main problem? Because the first question is where? Because before understanding what is broken, in Magento 2 we have to understand where is broken. And yeah, debugging is all it is. You have to find some piece of code doing something somehow, somewhere. And once you find, you fix something broken somewhere with something you will do somehow. This is debugging. And the tools I suggest you to use while approaching the bug, for example. PHP Storm, we have seen before. I suggest you to use MSP.tools. It's an extension we created from MageSpecialist. We'll see later in the live demo. Xdebug and Git bisect. We'll see them all in a live demonstration. They will answer to three main questions: where the code is, what is broken, and when it was broken. That are the three main questions when debugging something. Let's see the first one. So you have, for example, something coming from another company, a module maybe coming from another company that once installed stopped your website. So you have a problem in your website. So the bug comes from someone else's code. We'll see how to use MSP DevTools, we'll see it later, and Xdebug to understand where and what. Xdebug, do you know Xdebug? Yes. Okay, everyone does. Anyway, if someone does not, it's a module, a PHP module, able to suspend PHP code execution, and it allows you to inspect, for example, the runtime values of your variables. Because yes, you can do the same using var_dump and printf, but you know, every time you do, a programmer dies in the work. Because have you ever tried to var_dump a product model? The units may collapse. It's something insane. Never try. Do not try at all. Okay, so now we'll see the first demo. Before we go, it's a video. We simulate a problem in a website. So we have a product page with a problem in the attributes section. So we're missing the attributes, but we know that attributes are ready in the database. So we have to understand what went wrong. Can you just start the first video? It's demo 1, and you have to move to the other screen. Okay. Can you read? Okay, so we have a problem here. All the attributes are missing. What we do? We just use the Chrome inspector, we point there, and we use the Magento tab here. This is going to change your life. This is impressive. So we click there and we see what is the block class, for example, in the template file involved for that single piece of page. This is amazing. And, no, wait. If you click, yes, of course, you have more information, for example, cache information or layout information. You have performance information and so on. It's very feature rich. If we click, PHP Storm opens. And we have directly the template here. And in this case, we see it is the standard HTML file. So it is not the template that was broken. And it seems the code is the right one. So we have to understand what's wrong here. We put a breakpoint here using Xdebug. We reload the page, and the code execution just stops, and we can inspect the variable's value. So for example, we take the whole output, and we can evaluate in real time what is the content of this variable. And yeah, it's empty. Yeah, okay, we know there is something wrong. But let's see if there is a problem from the source. So we check data value, and we see, oh yeah, the information is here. So what is the problem? Yeah, it's probably that someone created a plugin in product attribute. So I just copy and paste product attribute, and I'm going to change your life again. We go back to Chrome, and we have another Magento tab, the global one, up there. We click, and we can get information on the whole page. So for example, we have design information. We can see, for example, the layout handle, Magento version, and so on. Yeah, I like this modifier. And yeah, we can see, for example, all the observers for this page. And if we click one, we can have additional information. We can see all the blocks and all the information of the blocks involved here. And guys, this is free. Data models and collection. You can click on a collection and you can see what is the select behind that collection. This is very powerful. You can save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches. But okay, let's go back. Plugins. I told you before, probably we have a problem in plugins. We copy and paste product attribute here. We have a plugin. This module is capable of understanding we have a plugin here. We just click. Yeah. Wait. Okay. So if we click here, we can see that we have a plugin from bad or messing volume output. Yeah, probably the problem is there. So we just click and we open the plugin class. Can you see what is the problem? Missing equal. Now we just refresh the page, and let's see if it's fixed. Okay, let's check it again. And yes, now the method is returning the right value. Okay, let's continue execution, and we see that this page was fixed. Okay, this is just an example, but can you imagine how hard it could be to find this piece of code? It was just one single chart inside a plugin created by someone else. Inside an extension you find somewhere. It's very time consuming. And with this extension you can go straight. And it's free, as I told you before. Can we get back to the presentation?
Which slide was it?
I will go by my own.
Okay.
You need Xdebug. Okay. Okay, we are here. Okay, now let's see another scenario. So there is a bug coming from our code. I mean, when I say our code, I mean if you have an access, for example, to the Git repo. This is a typical customer bug report. Yesterday, all was working on the website, and today nothing works. How many times? But we have precious information here. We know that yesterday was working, and today nothing is working. If we even manage to understand what is the broken part, we can use git bisect to understand when the code was broken. Do you know, have you ever used git bisect before? Few people. It's a very simple tool but powerful tool coming directly inside Git that allows you to define one commit where the code was working and one commit where the code was not working anymore. And it moves across the Git commits, and it's capable to understand when the code was broken. This is very powerful. I'll show you because it's very easier to use than explain. If we go to the second video. Okay, we have the same problem here, but we know, we open PHP Storm, okay, version control. We know that here the code is not working, and here it was working. So we just, okay, just let's wait. We copy the code of the commit, we open a shell, start git bisect start, so we stop the process of bisect, and we say git bisect good, and the commit where we know it was working. Then we take the last commit, and we say git bisect bad, because here it was not working anymore. Then it asks us to check again. So we check the page, and okay, now it's working. So we say git bisect good, because this version is working. Okay, check again. Still working. So we say again, git bisect good. Check again. We are moving and 16 commits about, okay, this is not working anymore. So we say git bisect bad. Check again. Should be the last one. Okay. Git bisect bad. Okay, we found it. This is the breaking commit. We also have the date, so. Okay, where is the commit? Here we go. Okay. Double click on this file, and we see that the problem was in this line. Before the commit, we had the right syntax. After the commit, we had the wrong syntax, so we just fix it. We have a problem here. Who can understand what is the problem here? Raise your hand if you do.
You wrote that code?
No, really. Problem comes from the module version. So for example, if we have, you know that Magento is handling database using upgrade scripts, you know. If we are moving between a version and another one, we can have a problem because Magento will stop working because the version does not correspond between file system and database version. So the only problem here is when you change the module version. But if you are capable to manage this kind of situation and you are able, for example, to create a small commits, this can be the right tool. And you have to create a small commits for a simple reason. Because once you find commit, if you have 100 files inside, you cannot find what is the breaking file. So use Git in the right way. Okay, that's it guys. Thank you very much.